Welcome to the webinar by Divami Design Labs. Thank you all for joining us. I am Rakesh. I'm the Principal Design Manager at Divami, and I will be monitoring today's session. We have fantastic guests lined up for today's discussion, Vasu from Right Data and Pratibha from Divami. To our audience who are joining, please post your thoughts, comments, questions in the chat section. The panelists will be addressed them at the end of the discussion. Let's make the session interactive. Without any further delay, let me introduce our panelists. We have Vasu joining from Atlanta. The Vasu is the CEO and founder of Right Data. The Vasu is one of the world's leading authorities on the data architecture, and he has over 20 years of experience working with multinational giants. He currently leading Right Data with a phenomenal growth and empowering the world-class clients like Walmart, P&G, Johnson & Johnson, DHL, and many more with his end-to-end data integration and DevOps products. Closer home, we have Pratima, the Chief Designer and Executive Director at Divami Design Labs. With 20 plus years of experience, she is the execution mastermind of Divami. She has been an integral part of Divami's success, providing the vision and the direction for the agency. Under Pratima's leadership, the Divami has delivered the world-class digital products for the clients across the world. Thank you for joining us, Vasu and Pratima. It's a delight to have you with us.
Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you, Rakesh, for the introductions, and welcome, Vasu. It is a pleasure to have you on this webinar, and looking forward to a great conversation.
Thanks, Pratima. Thanks, Rakesh. Same here.
Thank you. Yeah, let's kickstart the session by looking back at your journeys as an entrepreneur, Vasu. Vasu, you have led the data and product management teams in some of the world's largest companies like Nike, Coca-Cola, Deloitte, and IBM. I'm sure you would have some common challenges and some differences. Can you please share your experience and what led you to start the Right Data?
Sure, absolutely. Before I do that, a brief introduction about myself. Vasu Satanpalli, I'm the CEO and Chief Architect for Right Data. About my journey. First of all, thanks for the warm welcome, and I am really excited to be part of this panel. I'm looking forward to actually share my thoughts and listen to the what Pratima got to say about the designs and the influence on the data, as well as the question and answers from many kind of the team members. So firstly, I feel truly privileged to be part of the journey and being fortunate to actually work for these world-renowned brands like Nike, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, Deloitte, IBM, etc. So I believe my exposure to this diverse set of industries made me truly a versatile person, as well as taught me to stay on toes all the time, right? So I have always been an entrepreneur during my corporate gigs. Even though I was working for the corporates in the past prior to Right Data, I have always been focused on building solutions, evangelizing them, basically going above and beyond to serve my stakeholder needs, right? So that's me. As far as the company Right Data goes, and the idea of starting a product-based company seated in my head and at very early stages of my career. But being an engineer, I don't know how to actually start a company as well as how to run the business as well, right? So that's why I actually invested in myself and learning business management fundamentals by going to executive MBA with Georgia Tech, right? So as far as a data practitioner, to answer your question, what is the common theme that I observed across these groups is the common theme I observed is mainly the business users always in the need of right data at the right time to be delivered to the right people. So hence the inception of Right Data.
Got it, Vasu. Yeah, I understand that having a business users having an right data at right time is the what motivated you, and that you see the difference across the domains or industries that you worked. Vasu, that's interesting to know. And can you elaborate how right data is helping us to achieve that?
Yeah. So when we started up Right Data, so our aspiration has always been going to the end-to-end spectrum of it, but we want to start the company more niche and then addressing a specific need in the industry, which is poorly met or unmet somewhat, right? So that's why our first product, RDT, started. The goal of the RDT is basically to build the confidence on the data platform to the business users so that the adoption can go up, and then all the investments that business has done towards the data, data enablement is going to come to the reality, right? And this actually came out of my personal experience along with my other colleagues who were already part of this leadership team. We had this kind of data challenges and the data trust challenges in my prior companies, and just to name Coca-Cola. So we were actually going through a similar kind of journey. There was a need for data trust, a platform that would actually give the business users so that the numbers are reliable. So we have built something in-house for Coca-Cola as a team. We succeeded. Similar kind of story actually repeated in the subsequent companies as well. So I thought this is the right place to start.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Vasu. Finding similarities in the domains and identifying a problem statement from there and creating a product which helping the most of the customers. That's really interesting, Vasu.
Yeah, these two industries, just to know, Coke and Bank of America, these are completely different industries, but the problems remain similar, right? So having a trust on the data, having reliable data is going to be the crucial thing. Nowadays, every business needs right data.
Got it. So, yeah, everyone wants the data enablement and data trust challenges everyone having. As you rightly said, it's really needed product, Vasu. Yeah, Pratima, Divami primarily focus on the deep tech platforms and enterprise platforms and SaaS design. While most of the design agencies focus on the consumer applications, what led you to take up this direction towards the deep tech platforms?
People like Vasu, they made us, come up with an agency where we can focus on deep tech platforms, enterprise, and SaaS platforms. Jokes apart, but both my co-founder and I, Naveen and I, we come from technical background. We are both engineers. We did engineering and masters probably both of us did masters in computer science. I think it was there in us where, the logical thinking, critical thinking was always been there in us. And, when I think Naveen wanted to start a company in 2008, it was looking for, he met people and he realized that there is a lot of scope for design in India, especially as a design firm in India. But then we always wanted to be different and we wanted to do something different. And we knew our strengths and weaknesses. There was, though there was enough market for consumer applications, one of the things we thought we could really contribute was in the deep tech space, SaaS space. It was just blooming at that time. And US market was ready for design. They understood the value of design. Whereas in India, it was just catching up at that point. And we thought that it is the right time to have our own niche way of executing design. So that is where we started focusing on these kind of platforms.
Good to know that, Pratima. Yeah. And the solving the deep tech platforms is not that easy. And right now, seeing the market, there is a lot more scope in solving the problems that are bigger challenges. It's very interesting.
Yes, Rakesh, every business comes with its own challenges. Every idea comes with its own challenges, right? Yes, it is definitely not easy to design for complex platforms like Right Data. And also finding designers in the space is also extremely hard because when the designers graduate from the current design institutes, they focus a lot more on consumer research. They focus a lot more on, retail market or e-commerce business. And I think as designers, they also are able to understand and empathize with the, end users in that space, e-commerce, consumer space, whereas understanding how a data scientist works, or understanding the mind of a data scientist, or understanding the mind of a CXO is not that easy, because you cannot relate to them, number one. Number two, these designers also, because they come from design background, they're taught the principles of design, but they're not necessarily taught, how to analytically solve certain problems which are extremely crucial in B2B space. So those are the challenges. So, in Divami, what we do is when we onboard designers, we train them on critical thinking. We train them on how to, focus on certain aspects, not just, demographics or geographics of the end users, but also psychometrics and subjective matter expertise and the domain expertise. So those are the things that we do focus on. So yeah, we do have the challenges of finding good designers and training them, and as well as, figuring out where we stand in terms of also, in terms of clients, we sometimes find it hard to explain the value of design in this space. So
yeah, I truly echo with you, Pratima, on that. Yeah. Vasu, this is for you. There is a lot of buzz about the data modernization, and there are many definitions that are floating on the internet. What, according to you, is data modernization, and how do you think it will impact the current data world?
Yeah, very relevant and wonderful question for me specifically, because I'm just coming out of the TDWA conference, and it's all about the data modernization, right? So before I talk about data modernization, let me just touch on the modernization in the context of technology itself, right? So which is nothing but the process of transforming something to effectively work in a contemporary setting. That's basically is the modernization, right? So now speaking of the data modernization is my definition. Various definitions in the market, everyone have their own definition, but my understanding based on my experiences, it's a process that would empower stakeholders with the capabilities to handle contemporary decision-making needs, right? Contemporary is always subjective. If you talk 10 years from now, there's relevancy 10 years from that point as well, right? So contemporary decision-making process requires moving the needle from left to right in the analytics maturity curve. I think we all heard of what analytics maturity curve is, but I'll briefly touch on my perspective of it, right? So to me, the 4 stages of the analytics maturity model are having the ability of, providing descriptive analytics and diagnostics analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, right? So these are the 4. So speaking of the descriptive analytics, having a clear understanding on what happened in the past. So if you are providing business with the capabilities to have a clear understanding on what happened in the past, meaning we are at the stage of descriptive analytics, right? So when we have an understanding, when we also have an understanding the reasons of why something happened, that's it, providing diagnostics analytics. Whereas predictive analytics is predicting what could happen in future, with a reasonable confidence. That would be a predictive analytics. Whereas the prescriptive analytics would be by understanding what could happen in future, be able to prescribe a step-by-step, what kind of actions to take so that we can turn the situations in the favor of stakeholder, right? So to me, these are the 4, phases in the maturity curve, right? So the whole idea of the data modernization is pushing the needle from left to right, all the way to the prescriptive analytic state, right? So of course, the table stakes here is delivering these capabilities at the right time with a high degree of accuracy and quality.
Yeah, Vasu, it's really interesting, Vasu. You explained the 4 stages of the analytics. And what do you think, where do the current world is in right now? In which stage the most of the things happening is in the descriptive? I believe that we already passed the descriptive, and diagnostics are also then. For me, I feel like we are in the predictive analytics stage. You are the right person to Please tell us.
Yeah, it varies based on company to company, but as an industry, if you talk about as a technology, right? So as a technology where we stand, being at a state in the technology is different from people adapting to it, right? So as a technology, as an industry, I feel there are robust set of technologies to meet the predictive analytics. Prescriptive analytics, we are maturing, right? So in my opinion, we are between 3 and 4. So we're kind of 3.5 as an industry, right? Obviously, some companies are still having challenges with phase 1 itself, right? And some companies are at phase 2 and then phase 3, etc. But it varies by companies. But as an industry and then technology readiness perspective, we are 3.5 in mind.
Got it, Vasu. And it's completely, we understand the definition of what modernization, moving towards the prescriptive analytics is what the aim of the data modernization is. Got it.
Yeah, just wanted to add one point. So just because we are at the phase of prescriptive analytics doesn't mean that every single business problem requires prescriptive analytics, because there are basic business problems. You could still do it with a traditional reporting, traditional dashboarding. You don't need machine learning for everything, right? But in a maturity curve, so if somebody having capability to prescribe based on predicting the future, that is the somewhat the more matured state in the whole spectrum field, right? So the whole goal of the data modernization is push the needle towards that.
Got it.
And also to add to what Vasu is saying, I think the volume of data also counts, Vasu, if I'm not wrong. In some of the industries, they don't need volumes and volumes of data. They could be limited volume of data, which would be good enough for them to do their analytics. In that case, right, it is not worth spending a lot of time, effort, and money on prescriptive analytics, where that is where the AML modeling and everything comes into picture, as well as the predictive analytics, because I think their descriptive and diagnostic analytics is probably more than enough. I think in design language, Vasu, we generally call them as insights, predictions, and suggestions. So prescriptive analytics, pretty much in common language, is suggesting the end user what they could be doing. And insights is nothing but descriptive plus diagnostics. When you kind of give them insights, and if they want to drill down, they drill down further. So I think I'm just, aligning the data terminology to the common man terminology.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, you have explained the analytics. We would like to know. The data means different things to different people. How do you make sure to deliver the true value of the data for design?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Rakesh. So exactly, data means different things to different people. And it is extremely important for us to understand who is looking at this data. As a simple example, in the context of data wrangling, the data scientist is primarily the person who is going to be interested in data wrangling, right? But having said that, if you take a SaaS platform, a different SaaS platform like HubSpot or something, there are different personas. So, first of all, you need to understand who is going to use this particular application or platform to begin with. And you need to understand what roles they perform. Not everybody is interested in everything. And, at a CXO level or at a leadership level, they are looking at insights for their vision and for their strategy. They're not looking at something for day-to-day execution. Whereas, at a different level, the managers or, the data scientists, for example, they are trying to make things easier in terms of execution. Whereas at a different level, they might be looking at just monitoring the application. So it all depends upon who is using. So we as designers first have to understand the roles, who would be using these applications, and then understand, the psychometrics. Normally, right, earlier we used to talk about user-centric design, but of late as Devami, we have been talking about growth-centric design. And in growth-centric design, the key principles that we keep in mind are we are not only user-focused, we are product-focused, and we are also business-focused. What I mean by that is when we say we are end-user-centric, all we are trying to say is we will understand the demographics, geographics, pain points, needs of the end users. But when we consider the product and the business, then we are also considering the vision and the mission of the business, what they want to do in 5 years, what is the current state of the product, what are the features that are there, and what is the roadmap, and what is the plan that they have, right? And we also consider not only the product managers, feedback, but we also consider the development, their limitations and their considerations, and also we consider the roadmap of the product. So it is a holistic approach to design. Normally, when it comes to B2C platforms, we typically focus on end users and we know them well, and we try to make the applications, very user-centric. But when it comes to B2B platforms, and especially deep tech and enterprise platforms, it is extremely important for us as designers to be aligned with the business vision of the client that we are working for. It is also important to understand the product, the current state, and also the roadmap, the end users, and just not this, right? It is also important for us to understand the businesses that our client is targeting it, right? And along with it, it is very important for us to understand the subject matter expertise of these users, the end users, the business end users. It is also important for us to understand what is the cognitive tolerance, especially when we are considering these complex applications. Some user roles are not cognitive tolerant, and some of them are cognitive tolerant. So it is extremely important for us to keep that in mind, the domain expertise also in mind. So these are some of the things we definitely keep in mind when we are designing for these kind of platforms. If you want, I could one easy example that I usually give is if there is an application, a SaaS application for the hotelier or the hotels, right? The Radisson or Sheraton. The CXOs of Sheraton are interested in a holistic, high-level view of what's happening. Let's say network in these hotels, right? They're just interested in a high-level overview of everything is all right across all their chains of hotels. And they're also interested in strategic information as to what to do next. Whereas, the managers of these hotels or a group of hotels, they're interested in making sure that everything is going fine. Whereas a receptionist at a hotel is interested in receiving alerts, if something goes wrong. And the IT admin is interested in understanding what the problem is and how to quickly fix it and the turnaround time of fixing it. So depending upon the role and the subject matter expertise, because the receptionist definitely will not understand, even if you try to explain the problem, they only want to know whether there's a problem or not. They will not understand if you try to explain the problem to them. But whereas an IT admin wants to know where the problem is, how did it occur, and how quickly can I fix it? So just like Vasu was mentioning, the descriptive analytics is important for the receptionist to a certain degree. We should not overload them with a lot of information. It's just the right information is good enough for them. Whereas for the IT admin, prescriptive analytics is, the curve has to go up to prescriptive analytics. Whereas CXO is not interested in this particular situation of internet monitoring and management. He's not even interested in it. He just wants to understand how is the customer experience in terms of internet and how is the health of it. And if it is a 3 on a scale of 5, he wants to understand how to take it to 4 and then to 5. Or in terms of all of these hotels, he wants to understand which of them have the least experience and which of them have the greatest experience and what are the differences between them. Or he wants to understand how are my platinum users, are they happy or not? Things like that, and how many people are returning or how many people are complaining about problems, at a holistic level. So like we were discussing, I mean, this example would be easy for people to understand rather than get into the wrangling and cleaning of the data. So I went with a different kind of an example. But the idea is to explain that, data means different things to different people. It's extremely important for us to understand the roles and what is their expectation. It is also extremely important for us to understand the psychometrics, and along with it, the business vision and the current state of the product and the vision of the product.
Thanks, Pratima, for elaborating the things. The example really helps our audience to understand what we are talking about, the personas, the goals, and the pain points, why the data is different from different persons. Thanks for quoting an example here. Vasu, the other one is I keep hearing from a lot more from the internet and all that. Like the things are moving from, as you stated, like analytics is moving from a descriptive to the prescriptive based analytics. Samely, I'm knowing about the data being informed to the data first. And especially now the data being accessed as a product. We are keep hearing about data as a product and all that. And we are thinking that those who use the data first have an advantage over their competitors. So how is the right data is enabling the data first approach?
Yeah, good question. So let me first start off my interpretation of the data first, right? So to me, the data first approach it's a strategy that orients every aspect of the organization to maximize the data usage, right? So the best use of the data, so that they can gain the competitive advantage, right? That's the first thing. I mean, just to double clicking onto that, the two pillars of the data first approach to me is number one is breaking down the data silos in the organization. The second is establishing the trust on your data. These are going to be the two foundational pillars, right? So right data's mantra is just to empower, unify, and trust, which basically are covering these kind of pillars for the data first organization, right? Besides foundational data management capabilities that Dexterous and RDT products of ours contain, we are in the business of realizing the concepts like data as a product and data first. So these are more frameworks and concepts, but there has to be some tangible products which can enable it, right? So those are the components that we have, and some of them actually in flight. So just to give an example, we are now working on a capability, we will be the first in the industry. I won't be, I'll correct myself if that's not true, to actually build a corporate data marketplace, not to get confused with the Snowflake's marketplace, which is sharing the data across organizations. So the concept that we're actually coming up with and having an interface that is to actually provide a corporate data marketplace interface. So the goal is to actually improve the collaboration of the data among various teams within the company, and quality, of course, the quality, having a transparency into the quality, and reusability of the data sets that the components that are being built to be reusable and reduce the redundancy across the data organization, right? So if you look at most companies, the same customer data, same vendor data, same PO data is lying in different shapes and sizes and different areas of the organization. So, and we know the problem with that, single version of truth may not be the nirvana state, but at least we got to minimize the redundancy, right? So that's one aspect of it. So, also just to extending on the corporate data marketplace concept, using corporate data marketplace, we'll have a producers and consumers, right? Producers can actually turn the analytics ready data assets, which now they are being called as ARDs, into data products. So essentially, and these analytics ready products can actually be published into marketplace. On the other end, the consumers will have an intuitive searchable interface where they can explore and discover the relevant data sets that they're looking for. Once they find the best fit one, they can actually start consuming it instead of rebuilding from building from scratch. So that's how you can actually improve the collaboration. That's how you can improve the reusability and minimize the redundant data sets lying in different organizations. So besides that, our RDT product is designed to improve the reliability and trust of the data platform, combine RDT and Dexterous is basically the data first enablement, data as a product enablement, and data modernization enablement is happening using our solutions.
Got it, Vasu. Vasu, you said that the data marketplace and the right data is going to be the first one to do that. Can you please elaborate more on that, how it is going to help the user? You mentioned that the reusability will be there and there will be a quality improvement, and you can reduce the redundancy part of it. Apart from that, how the marketplace, can I assume that marketplace is similar to any other marketplace, or?
Yeah, so that's the whole idea. Basically, all of us are very quite familiar with Amazon marketplace, and then various marketplace where you actually purchase, doing the e-commerce purchases and so on. The very similar concept where as a data marketplace within the organization on Dextrous, you will have a similar interface, intuitive interface with an ability to search for the products. The products in this context are the data products. Per se, if I'm a business user, I'm trying to build a portal, right? The portal requires open invoices, right? Open invoices is the data that I'm actually looking for. What is the traditional approach? They would reach back to the BI teams, and the BI teams would actually take their own time, or they will have their own shadow IT teams. They extract the data, they do their own data massaging, all that kind of a redundant efforts. The whole idea is having this collaborative interface where they can actually come in and then search for, in this case, open invoices. Open invoices is with a search word, they should be able to see all kinds of open invoices, data products that were already published by previous committers or producers rather. And then as a consumer, I'll be able to swipe through the list and understand the quality metrics, what it contains, and just to get a quick preview of it. Once I know that, oh, this is the most closest data products that I can actually use, and you could actually subscribe to it. The subscription and consumption can be different forms. You can actually use the JDBC and then consume the data, or you can actually stream through APIs. So these are the kind of components that we have now with the corporate data marketplace, improving the collaboration, reusability aspects of it.
Understood, Vasu. And
Rakesh, if I can ask a question, I mean, I'm quite interested and curious. So, Vasu, how real-time and dynamic can this marketplace be, Vasu? Because, I completely echo with the problem that you're explaining, and I can, I would love to be using that product. I just want to understand a little bit more in terms of the real-time usage of it, like, between the teams. We are talking about sales team, we are talking about marketing, the delivery, and then the finance team, right? So how real-time would this marketplace will be or enable the companies to be?
Sure. So real-time is very subjective, and then it got to be used on a need basis, right? I think if you ask the business user, what is your freshness requirement? They say, always, I want immediate, right? So there has to be a right set of questions to be asked. There should be a right set of questions to be asked to see why you need a second latency, right? So, but as a technology platform, Dextrous, the corporate data marketplace that we are enabling, have three different versions of products. One is a physical, we call it as a local data product. The second is virtual, and the third is hybrid, right? What are we trying to do here? We're trying to basically hit the right kind of middle ground between persistency and virtualization. If you talk to some companies and they are fully into virtualization, don't move the data, leave the data where it is, and then at the time of a request, go grab it. I wish that would work all the time. We all know the reality. There is a physics behind. So as the complexities grows, as the volume grows, that's not really an option all the time. Probably 60% of the time you could get away from it, right? So that's why I think we came up with the concept of three categories of data products. The data product can be local, where you would be pulling and persisting it, or a remote, meaning for say if my data is in a Salesforce, and then I will be shielded from how to connect to Salesforce. What are the various fields? I'll be shielded from it, and my data product will say my opportunities. Okay, I want to know the opportunities. You'll go to the data marketplace, hit on my opportunities. It would behind the scenes has all the engineering connectors back into Salesforce, and all I would have to worry about is, consume the data and use it wherever I want. Right? That's a remote. And the third one is a hybrid, where we do the mix of it. Right? So sometimes I may have to take my ERP data, marry it with my Salesforce data, and I want to do this live, so that we do that as well, right?
Thanks, Vasu. And sorry, Rakesh, to interfere.
No, Pratima, this is really interesting because now you talked about consuming the data, right, Vasu, from a local, remote, and hybrid. So will that, because the data is growing and we have a trillions and trillions of the data, so do you see the performance issues while extracting the data from those systems or creating the hybrid solution? As you said, that ERP and the Salesforce data combining and creating a one more data set or a product. So where you
absolutely. So there is no one right answer, right? So it is very subjective, depending upon the case by case basis. The data platform owners has to make a choice what kind of data product that I had to spin off, right? What kind of framework that I had to go with? Should I go with the more keep the data where it is, build a virtual layer, or bring the data in persisted? So if my data process, the processing takes 10 minutes per se, right? So because the data volumes are high, I would crunch the numbers, and then my processing is taking time. So why, nowadays, and everyone is used to the Googles, and I just go to the browser, I'm expecting an answer fraction of a second, right? So which means you cannot really sit there and then try to, wait for 10 minutes to actually crunch the numbers. So that's where the persistency comes in. So the persistency is not going away. Some people say, oh, data lakes and data warehouses and lake houses are gone. I'm going to be completely virtual. To me, the right answer lies in the middle. There are times that you have to persist, times you have to virtualize, times you may have to do marry on fly, which is hybrid. There are a few questions in the chat box.
Yeah. You want to take it now? Also, I feel like last 10 minutes we can dedicate for the questions.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Because now we heard from the Vasu, like how the data world is growing and the data platforms and the tools are evolving rapidly. As the designers, how quickly do you adapt to the changes in the data world?
So one of the things, Rakesh, it's extremely important for us as designers to have the subject matter expertise, right? We definitely need to understand how the world is moving. And also when we are working for solutions, we also have to figure out, how do I put it? We just talked about speed, persistence, and the context of speed and persistence and the quality of data. Everything matters, right? So end of the day, anybody and everybody who is using this platform are humans, right? We all have intellectual space, we have emotional space, and we have innovation space. Sometimes we are in an emotional space where we expect the application to literally be another human being and talk to us. And then there is an intellectual space where we are trying to quickly get what we want. That is where the descriptive, diagnostic, and prescriptive analytics come into picture, or the 4 different types of analytics come into picture. And there is an innovative space where we need to give the thrill to the users, saying that, yes, I did something, right? I mean, that thrill of achievement has to come into picture as well. And that is innovation space, right? So to answer your question, there isn't one answer, Rakesh. It's not easy. It all depends upon the context of the application, what kind of problem we are trying to solve, who we are trying to solve. Again, it boils down to, how comfortable the user is on this application, what could be their emotions, and, what would be their state of mind when using this application. How easily should we, make things for them, simplicity of usage. But at the same time, when you make things too simple, it gets boring. So how do you engage the users while keeping things simple? End of the day, right? On any application, it's the 20% of that application that is used by 80% of the people, or 80% of the time. So if we could get that 20% right in terms of balancing between personalization and scalability, you need to personalize it and make the user feel like it has been, designed for them, and also make sure that we are not the bottleneck in terms of design, We're not the bottleneck in terms of the scalability of the application. So we have to keep scalability in mind. We also have to keep discoverability in mind, where we let the user discover things, but at the same time, when the user is lost or there are chances for the user to get lost in a certain space, we have to make sure we give contextual help and guided flows to them. And also as designers, we have to think 2 steps or 3 steps ahead. Like, we need to understand what are the entry points into that particular space of problem, and also what could be the different exit points. What I mean by that is, if you're designing a particular workflow or a page, you need to understand, from where and where, what questions in the user's mind will lead them to that particular space or page. And from there, he is looking at that data. We need to understand emotional state. We have to predict or put ourselves in their shoes and understand what kind of an emotional state they might be in. For all you know, I could have fought with my husband and come and I'm looking at Right Data application and I'm expecting Right Data application to make me feel better, right? So my emotional states. So these are some of the factors we need to consider when designing. So like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. It is just that as designers, we constantly have to keep ourselves into the user's shoes, understand where the data world is moving, understand where the technology is moving, where the innovation is moving, what is AI and ML definition, because that keeps changing every day in the world right now. So we have to keep ourselves up to date on all of this, which means that we have to somehow be replicas in terms of subject matter experts. We necessarily will not know everything. For example, I might not necessarily know everything that Vasu knows, but when Vasu is explaining, I should be able to instantly grab it. And then I should also understand what the end users of his application would be expecting. I need to understand the right data product, and I need to understand the entire data world, right? The domain expertise is also to some degree required. So yes, as designers, we have to keep ourselves up to speed on a lot of things.
Got it, Pratima. I understand. Definitely.
I didn't mean to sound like our job is very complex. Actually enjoy doing this. So, but then, I think every job has its own challenges, but it's quite interesting to especially be designing deep tech products for sure.
Yeah, got it, Pratima. Yeah, Vasu, I have so many questions to answer the couple of more questions. But before we jumping to the Q&A, I want to ask question related to the data world is complicated. We all discussed about data mesh, data as a product, and the accessibility and all that, right? While most of the data platforms focus on solving the core problem, they're trying to achieve that. You have been adherent to believer, I can say that you're not only solving the problem, you are thinking about how can I give a best experience to the users who is solving the end users part. So what led you to think differently? Which set you said from your counterparts?
Yeah. So let me answer this question slightly differently. So first of all, I want to talk about the most of our competition focus on small fragments of modern data management and data supply chain. Because if you take any data supply chains, there is a series of actions that one had to take it from starting from how do I collect the data to make the decisions, right? So our competition focus on a small fragment, fragments or a small part of the whole overall data lifecycle. So for example, some products only are capable of doing the ingest. Some products only focus on transform. Some are actually focusing more on virtualization, right? We believe the current day and age, the most businesses need all these capabilities, right? See, our vision is to simplify the complexities involved in data management, especially the modern data management, right? To do this, we have taken a very comprehensive approach. Our products cover actually pretty much the breadth and depth of the data supply chain, if you will, like ingest, transform, persist, virtualize, validate, wrangle, all the way through machine learning modeling, right? So of course, throughout this journey, the user experience is going to be the critical aspect of it. It has to be intuitive. It has to be as much lower learning curve as possible, right? That's how you can actually get the maximum the value out of the product. So by using our product, the data platform owners doesn't have to purchase 4 or 5 different tools, and especially stitch all of them together to solve what? One single problem, maybe a very big problem, which is modern data management, right? So the valuable time that the data engineers has to spend with the other approach of actually stitching many solutions together, they don't have to spend time on integrating various tools. Rather, they can focus on solving the real business problem. That's the value proposition of our product.
Got it, Vasu. And you rightly said that, right? Right now, the market in order to solve a single problem, I need to install or I have to subscribe to 5 different products to solve a single problem. And that is the biggest.
And always deal with engineering problem of how to stitch all these things together. Yeah.
Together, that's a thing. And for that, definitely we need it, because if you're trying to doing the 5 different product solutions in one place, we need to worry about the experience things, how the handshake between the products, how can we transform the data from one page to another, or one screen to another, one module to another. So yeah, I got it, Vasu, where that's led to user experience part of it. Yeah. Pratima, do you have any points on that thing? Because it's a common problem that we are seeing right now, to even the HRMS, to get a complete picture, where I have to talk to 3 different products to get a complete picture of a user profile and all that. So how the user experience is going to handle that?
Rakesh, products are getting complex and complex. The world is demanding that. I mean, they want more and more features, and as businesses or as products, right? That market segments, the target market segments that the businesses aim to target, they begin with a small market, right? TAM, they begin with a small market, and then it just keeps expanding. As they keep expanding, the requirements of different market segments keeps changing. Like small businesses, their requirements could be slightly different. Medium-sized businesses, their business could be slightly different. Corporates would have different needs. It also depends upon the domains that they come from. If we are targeting healthcare, their requirements could be very different from, financial organizations, right? So when we are trying to cater or, broaden our horizons in terms of business target audience, the complexity of the applications is increasing. Now, as the complexity of these applications increases, it is extremely important for us as designers to keep all of these users in mind. Now, but having said that, you cannot work with like 50 personas. It's extremely hard. So it is important to understand what is common among all of these users and what is different, right? And what, again, like we were speaking earlier, to be honest, it is 20% of the application that is used 80% of the time, irrespective of which domain, irrespective of where they come from. It is extremely important for us as designers to get this 20% of the workflows right. And what I mean by that is to make sure that every user, we need to understand what is this 20%. And for every role, we need to understand what is this 20%. And we have to make these experiences, this 20% of the application, seamless to all users, irrespective of which domain they come from, irrespective of which size of business they come from. So that is something that we absolutely have to focus on. And as we are focusing on that, we need to also understand the user needs. I mean, this is all the business aspects of it, right? But we also have to understand user needs, their pain points, and the pain points of different users from different domains as well as from different sizes of business differ. Now, we again have to find the commonality between them and the differences between them. And like we discussed earlier, we need to understand different aspects, like where discoverability is needed, where guided flows are needed, what is cognitive load or cognitive tolerance to different people, what is personalization to whom? What personalization to you could be different from personalization to me. So there is a lot of information that we collect, we analyze, we introspect by putting ourselves into the user's shoe, and then we design, and then we do usability testing as well. So I guess that answers your question, hopefully, Rakesh.
Yes, Ridma. Yeah, I understand. There's a lot more aspects need to be considered. Identifying the primary journeys, the primary workflows is the crux for the experience. As you rightly said, that any applications will have the 20 to 30% of the primary workflows, and the rest are the supporting workflows. We have to.
Yeah.
So for us, all 100% of them can be perfect.
Yes, Vasu, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. Pratima, this question for you, because you're working with Right Data from the last almost 2 years from now. So what is your experience working with Right Data and Right Data team?
It has been a fantastic journey, Rakesh. I will take this opportunity to butter Vasu a little bit. Just kidding, Vasu. But to be honest and deep from my heart, I have a lot of respect for Vasu and his team. He is a man with vision and purpose. We met about 2 years back in Divami office, and when he explained what Right Data is all about, I was very inspired about, first of all, the idea, the vision, and he's a gentleman. And, he actually is one of the very few founders with whom I have worked who understand the value of user experience, right? For him, it has been extremely important that the user's experience has to be top-notch. I think that has always been there from day one, and that's why he was in search of a partner who could help them with design. And it happened that we met, and since then the journey has been fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy working with Vasu and his team, and I think the entire team enjoys working with Vasu and his team. He's quite empathetic, and so is his team. It's a lovely journey so far, and I think I'm looking forward to many more years of engagement, Rakesh. I think we slowly built that rapport as well. So
true with me also, because I learned a lot from Vasu when working on this project, actually. It gives me a different perspective, and the amount of patience that Vasu has to explain each and every concept.
It's very mutual. It's very mutual.
Yeah, honestly, Vasu, I think earlier, right, data seemed like a black hole for all of us. While we understand theoretically about it, but I think you make things easy when you explain to people. So I think the way you put it out front for us, it helps us visualize stuff and analyze them quite easily. So
so I didn't realize that the time has been clicking like that, and we are almost closer to the time. So, and we have a bunch of questions on the chat window, so I will take the questions from there. So the first question is, what are the key accelerators thinking shifts for an enterprise to move to data modernization, like data marketplace? What other ideas are there? I think the first question is like, what are the key accelerators that shift for an enterprise to move to the data modernization also?
Accelerators comes in different ways. One is the processes and frameworks. The second is technology, right? The processes and frameworks perspective, I think these days, SIs are doing a great job because system integrators actually have been through this journey many times. because like I said, the data modernization is very relative term, like many modernization. If you talk 10 years back, the data modernization is going to Hadoop and Spark. Now it's cloud, right? So the framework and process would be very similar, but technology changes, right? To me, thinking of an accelerator is having the right frame of mind, what's keeping that end goal in mind is going to be very important. As far as the tool sets are concerned, I do have a higher regard and respect for our competition. They do a great job in many areas, especially in the data modernization. We are here for a right competition, compete with them. So you use products like Right Data, and that actually gets the whole journey of the data modernization simple and smooth.
Yeah, Vasu. There is another question from Peter. I hope that question the Vasu answered your question. There is another question, Vasu. It's more about like we talked about the data marketplace. Like data marketplace, what are the other ideas? Are they to commoditize the data product and provide more immediate value to the consumer or enterprises?
Yeah, I mean, a data marketplace is, again, corporate data marketplace. I don't want to get confused with the data marketplace by Snowflakes and other cloud vendors, which pretty much capitalizing or monetizing on the individual's data. But the concept that we are referring to is more of the corporate data marketplace, where inward looking within an enterprise, within a corporation, we have multiple businesses and business units. Usually 70 to 80% of the data is very common. Their twist, how they actually look at it would be different. So the whole the idea of the data marketplace is just that having that productization of the efforts that went into actually building a analytics ready data set and making it reusable, right? So to me, the commoditization of the data product comes just from that. Having an easy access interface where you can actually, people can go and then search through, just like it should be as simple as you go to Amazon and then look for a product, right? So it should be as simple an experience as that, so that you can get an immediate value out of it versus having to spend months and weeks together to recreate what's already there. Transparency, visibility is going to be the key.
Yeah. As you said, the transparency is a key for the data quality and all. So there is another question related to the same thing, Vasu. How important is the data trustworthiness in today's world? I think it's I think it's the question for you as well as Pratima. I want to understand from a design point also for that question. Yeah, Vasu, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think our fundamental bread and butter is basically how do I build the trust on the data platforms, right? I think so. As far as importance is concerned, there are a whole set of companies just spinning up just to solving that problem. It's the mission critical because unlike back in the days, if something goes wrong in the data, probably financial industries and some compliance, highly compliant, industries is what used to bother about it, right? But now, including the financial impact, there are all sorts of impacts if your data trustworthiness is not in place. Starting up from, if you speak of the data modernization, right? So typically, data modernization is done by technology teams, right? But the beneficiaries are business, right? If they don't have a trustworthiness on all the efforts that you have put in, they're probably going to stick to the old platform, and then all the investment that you've done is going to go out of, is going to be waste, right? So trustworthiness from the modernization perspective is that. Besides, beyond that, data is the pretty much new oil. We have heard that many, many times. So if the data, pretty much the data is running most businesses. In the past, it used to be the problem of the large and, the large companies, but now small, medium, large, every single business is actually looking at this. The trustworthiness is a must-have.
True. So not only the data, we need that in every aspect of whatever we are doing in a digital platform. It's well needed. So that's the reason, Pratima, there's a question is more relevant, how the design is helping to give that trust to the users.
So Rakesh, I echo with both of you, that making the users feel, they should have that sense of confidence of the trusting of the data, right? That's extremely important. So it's extremely important. I mean, especially because the on this deep tech and data platforms or data wrangling, data cleaning, as this is going on, it's extremely important for us to always put the user in the context of what is happening, help them understand what state they are in right now, what to expect, and if there are errors, how easily can we tell them that this is what is happening. And I mean, pretty much, it boils down to what are the insights that we can give, how easily can they consume the insights, because at the end of the day, on these kind of platforms, we tend to be very technical even in our language. So though we are still talking to data scientists or people who have high subject matter expertise, we need to balance the language there. We need to balance the language in the sense when you are explaining the error could be very technical in its nature, the explanation of the error. But when we are speaking to them, it should still look like we're speaking to a person, right? And kind of explain to them the different states that are going through. So what I'm trying to say is, in the end, trust is nothing but an emotion. Either you trust or you don't trust. And once there is a doubt in user's head, then they'll always start doubting. So we should, to begin with, as designers, we have to always understand what are the points where the user could get into the state of mistrust. And after you identify those points along the flow where a mistrust could happen, you need to be extremely conscious and cautious about how you're projecting the information at that point, what kind of information are you sharing, how much information is relevant, and if need be, we need to help the user dig down into further and further details until the trust is, thrust upon on them, right? So we need to be conscious of, there will be certain points where user, honestly, the trust factor doesn't come into existence in certain spaces. There's always, it sometimes is about click, 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 get done, boom, it's done and gone, right? But there are places where, he will question the integrity of the platform. So we need to identify the spaces and be extra cautious about how we present the information, what is just right, and also how much technical language is required and how much common language is required, how much drill downs are required. All of these are the things that we usually have to keep in mind.
Got it, Pratma. Understood. Yeah. Vasu, there is an interesting question asked by Emily. Do you know the financial impact outdated data practitioner has on an organization? I am assuming the countless man hours or spending fixing the mistakes and verifying the data and testing, etc. So what is an impact, financial impact we're going to achieve with this?
Yeah, unlike many aspects of the data modernization, to me, the data quality and data trust has a very direct impact on the financials, right? Again, like I was saying, it's not specific for the financial industries, to the compliance industries, where they had to worry about, are my numbers right? Going back on the data trust, which is kind of related to this question, is data trust doesn't mean that there is no issues, right? From a data perspective, right? It's practical that the data will have issues. Having that transparency into where the problem is, if there is a problem, I've been notified, right? So that's where the trust is. And if you were having a black box system and where, if there's a problem, you don't know, you have to basically reactively identifying the issues, that's where the trust gets broken. So having the transparency into the health of the application is where the data trust gets built, right? So going back in the financial impact of outdated data practices and then having to manually fix it, they were actually quantified. They were really quantified, and we have a whole bunch of use cases and case studies built around that. I mean, again, depends on the organization. They can really save 80% of their time and give that time back to the true innovation instead of sitting and then actually sweeping through the manual errors and fixing mistakes, etc. And then if you have a proactive system, you don't have to keep actually going and checking, is my number right? Is my number right? So doing it manually, it's unnecessary, mundane, and it's a cost. It's going to cost the time and labor and money, right? So definitely having a system in place has a multi-faceted benefits, right? Minimizing the financial impact is one of it, and of course, building the trust in the platform, and then giving that a manual hours back into the actual innovation and then actual business value added work within the business for the growth, etc.
Got it, Vasu. Understood. Yeah. And with this, I remembered that one of the conversations, the Reddies always said, we need to highlight the red, right? The issue.
Yes.
So the system is telling that these are the flags in the data that will really help the person who is working on it to where to focus on and how to fix that. That really, I understand that is the impact. Vasu, I think the question is mainly about the design. Can we achieve better decision making on the data platforms through design? I think it's question more towards you.
Can we achieve better decision making through design? Absolutely, absolutely, right? Data, end of the day, data is data. But what data means, the raw data is raw data to everybody. But what the data means to different people is different things. I think we touched upon it a little earlier, because out of that data, there is something that interests me, and I'm interested in understanding and analyzing a certain aspect of that data, depending upon my role. Whereas, somebody else would be interested in a different perspective of the same data, right? So it's extremely, I mean, if you have to look at it in a simple way, sales team, I mean, if there is certain data about certain companies, the sales team would be interested in looking at it in one perspective. The marketing team would be interested in looking at it from a different perspective. And if there are clients, right? That example would be much better. The finance team would be interested in, when can I invoice?
Yeah.
And the delivery team is always interested in, am I able to take care of the tasks on time? What is the complexity of tasks if it is the engineering team? The design team is focusing on, how do I include innovation into design, or the emotions, the end users and stuff. Whereas the project management team is looking at, am I on dot according to the roadmap? So the same data, when it is raw data, it is just raw data. But when you look at the deliverable, when is it going to get delivered? The project management team is looking at, oh, am I on track or not track? So that data means something to him. But the same delivery date to finance team could mean, oh, I'm interested in invoicing on this particular date, right? It's the same delivery date, but they mean different things to different people. So we as designers, have to understand who this role is and what kind of insights are they expecting, and what kind of suggestions, or the 4 analytics, right? The prescriptive, predictive. We need to predict what could be the situation. So for example, the finance team, hey, we see that the delivery is getting delayed, so probably your invoicing date will be moved. And to project management team, hey, looks like there is a risk in the delivery date getting extended, so you might want, these are the possible solutions for you, which is prescriptive analytics, saying that, hey, you might want to add one more person, or you might want to reduce your scope if you still want to stick to the deadline. So again, data is the same, but how people look at it, what perspectives they want, what insights they want is different. And as designers, we have to keep that in mind and design for those specific problems, or those specific roles or users.
Got it, Pratima. Actually, we are running out of time. We already passed 10 minutes, and I want to end with one last question, Vasu. This question for you. As an entrepreneur, what is your view of changing the world? through the data as a product. Any specific example that you can mention that would you like to see your product drive the change in the GB's world, gigabytes world? Is this a question from the Peter? Can I repeat the question, Vasu, or did you get the question?
If you don't mind, just repeat it, please.
Yeah. As an entrepreneur, what is your view of changing the world through your data products? Any specific examples you can mention that you would like to see your products drive the change in GB's world? I think it's gigabytes world or GBs.
Okay, maybe keeping that GB's world aside, and I can answer the question. So to me, as a data product company, my vision is to actually make the life of the data practitioner easy and simple. So they don't have to be bothered of how do I get this data in, how do I cleanse it, how do I transform it, and then all the engineering aspects of it. As much as possible, give the time back to the answers, analyze the answers coming out of the system, and then take an action so that they can, it can yield to the results that they're expecting versus continuing to be the, engineering problem. So again, it all goes back to the simplification. So I want to make sure as a product company, we focus on simplifying the complexities that are involved in data modernization and making sure we are giving the time back to the stakeholders to focus on the right problems versus having to deal with engineering problems.
Got it. So, it's the Peter corrected. It's this world, how you see the product drive the change in this world. But you answered that part. Vasu, it was really a fantastic session. We learned a lot from this session, both from you and Pratima. Thanks for your time and we all letting us know about what's happening in the data world and how the design is going to solve those problems. Thanks so much, Vasu and Pratima. Yeah. Thank you all
everyone.
for the webinar.
Bye.
Thank you, Vasu, for joining the webinar. Thanks, Rakesh, for moderating it, and thanks everyone. For people in India, good night, and for people in US, have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.